Okay, so welcome to Thursday's edition of our Property Investor Developer Help Show. I'm here to help you with any property challenges you've got. I'm not actually doing deal analysis on here, but I'm happy to try and answer any of your challenges, property problems you've got, and help you move forward in your property business. So I will await the first question. If somebody'd like to type in first. Normally I've got a lot of questions left at the end that I don't get a chance to answer because we normally finish after 45 minutes. Sometimes we go on a little bit longer. For the last few weeks we've had far more questions than what I could answer, and I answer them in order that they come in. So please feel free to ask away and I will answer your questions for you. In the meanwhile, I think everything out there seems to be getting back to some form of normality. I know that restaurants are opening this week. Hairdressers are opening, according to my wife, but people doing piercing and nails aren't. That's a bit weird. Not that it's got anything to do with property investing, but nor as how Arsenal did last night. So there we go. And obviously won because my cameraman is jumping up and down.
You might be top on now.
Right, so first question from Dave this evening. I think that means what do you think of this? Right move now on property market experienced a mini boom due to all the pent-up demand during lockdown. But don't be fooled by this false sense of security. The property market is going to crash by the end of the year or in early 2021. This is because the UK will slip into recession over the next few months. In October will be the crunch point when the government's furlough scheme comes to an end. Many people who are currently on the scheme will not be brought back to work. Unfortunately, millions of people might become unemployed overnight. Banking regulators predicted this with the worst recession in 300 years, and property prices could drop by 16%. Right. Supply and demand. So as long as people carry on paying their mortgages, then people, they won't go on the market as repossessions. But actually, if we had a crash, I actually can make far more money in a cat crash than I can in a boom. So it's not the worst thing in the world. As long as your properties are cash flow profitable, then there isn't going to be any problems for you if they're cash flow positive. If you're stuck with high lending from banks, you might have issues, but if they're on long-term loans, that's fine. It's about supply and demand, and the only reason property prices have crashed in the last two recessions because the government put interest rates right up. There wasn't anything. I can't see how it's related. I can get how the market will slow down, but watch this space and we'll see. I've always said that I think the COVID situation would see a 5% drop and then a gradual recovery. But right now we're having a mini boom. We are full of pent-up demand from prior to COVID, from when everyone started after the Brexit situation. So who knows what's going to happen, but however happens, if you're doing the right thing and you're buying well, that you're never going to get caught up. So if there is a 16% drop in the market and you've bought at 25% discount, who gives a stuff as long as you're running profitably? It will come back again, it always does. But let's watch this space and see. Palmetto says, not property related, but to the subject, with social distancing being reduced to 1 metre from Saturday, will you be starting to do face-to-face training again soon, and or the mentorship one-to-one again. We are preparing to start again in September. We don't do any in August. So we're looking at our face-to-face property training starting again in September. So yeah, that should answer that one for you. Minaj says, what's your view on HMOs and potential risk to owners due to the upcoming recession, expected redundancies, therefore inability for tenants to pay? Well, I've run, at one point I was the 8th largest housing benefit private owner landlord in the UK, and we did great with housing benefit as long as you learn how to deal with them. It is always about supply and demand, and if HMOs is the bottom end of the market for people from an affordability point of view, and it doesn't take too much to swap to housing benefit tenants in a property if that's where the market goes, and you can always do deals with council when we're in that type of situation. So there is always a solution. Just carry on as normal, and if something changes, we change. Don't not do anything because you're worried what might happen, otherwise you'll never do fuck all. I'll tell you a story. I met someone in 2005, and I spoke to him, and he said he had some money to invest in. He was waiting for the next recession. I bumped into him in 2009, quite well into the recession, and I said, I bet you've been filling your boots. And he's gone, well, I'm just waiting for the bottom of the recession. So I'm like, okay, fine. And I bumped into him about a year ago, and I said, how did you get on? Did you buy loads of properties? He's gone, no, I'm waiting for the next recession. Some people, just do things. And there is a way of doing things, whatever cycle we're in the market. And don't forget, it's fairly area specific as well. So, what's happening in one town isn't necessarily happening in another town. We've got a lot of towns in the UK which over the last few years have seen capital appreciation, and we've seen a lot of them that have stayed stagnant. You've got to understand the different microeconomies within the UK as well. But normally there's a saying, when when steak sales go down, the sausage sales go up. So you just got to get your timing right of when you're selling steak or when you're selling sausages, and it's as simple as that. So Palmetto said, Ajit mentioned on Friday that one client who was refinancing had a property in central London, the value came back less 20%. Yeah, Palmetto, I've always said for the last 2 years, don't be in central London, especially in the higher value places, especially where the 3% extra stamp really affects it. So there we go. And Jeep said he was shocked. Now, don't forget that's one surveyor's opinion, and we've got to see whether or not. The problem is they all follow suit, and if they're downvalued by that, and then the sellers decide not to sell, and then they get loads of other people that are going to buy it. Was it a refinancer? Did he say? Yeah, refinancing. Again, look at comparisons and see exactly what is going on in the market. Ring local agents, find out what's going on in the market. We know in a lot of the country the market is booming. We also know that in central London it's not. It's as simple as that. Be totally aware of what's going on in your investment area. That's why you should only focus on one particular town and know it inside out and backwards, or maybe 2 towns. Know them inside out and backwards and what's going on, and when you eat it, sleep it, live it, breathe it, you will know what's going on in the market. If you're going and visiting estate agents every day, or at least a few times a week, you're going to get the feedback. You're going to know what's happening in the market sooner than, as soon as they do, you'll get the feedback and know. Right, Catherine says, what presents do I need online if potential investors want to find out about my property experience. Do I need a landing page, a limited company setup, lead generation? What do you advise? Just starting out in property. Catherine, if you can just reply and I'll get to you in a minute. Are you talking about starting a sourcing business or a refurbishment business and you're looking for finance? Minard says, sure, we're just very new, so on a learning curve. Yeah, of course. You know, I've been doing property since 2004, so you know I've been doing it for 16 years, and you know I've seen and you know I've been buying properties since in the 80s. There was a point in the 80s where I had 4 properties, so yeah, obviously we're more aware of the situation and more aware of how to get around problems or challenges that different recessions bring. Mike says, will you please explain what condition a property needs to be in to qualify for 3% stamp refund? Are there any pitfalls? Get out to be aware. It has to be a bath, kitchen, sink, so it doesn't qualify. Project has already been completed. I think, Mike, you just need to prove that it wasn't habitable. I don't know whether you had to get a bridge because you couldn't get a mortgage. So I would certainly speak to your solicitor or read the small print in HMRC's small print. It was a court case. So if you Google the court case, HMRC, reference stamp duty court case, I'm sure it will come up and you'll get more details. And when you can get into the details of exactly what that one was, I'm sure you've got photos at the beginning of the project. Best of luck with that. So Jimmy says, is there a way to create, reduce or avoid inheritance tax bill on property? The original owner is deceased and the children have inherited the property. I was looking at doing possibly a delayed completion deal with the children, but they're concerned about the inheritance tax bill. Well, first of all, Jimmy, they need to be aware of what they get, okay? Just because you do something to it and it sells for more doesn't necessarily mean that they have a bigger tax bill. It means that you make a margin on it and that's deductible off of their figures. So if they, whatever you put on as your share comes off and they only pay tax based on what's there. So that's just a matter of negotiation and finding out. Makes look on the inheritance tax levels. Quite often, up to that, I think it's 700 grand. There's no inheritance tax to pay. Find out the facts as well, so you can help them with their decision. Give them the answers that they need, so it makes it easier for them to deal with it. Carrie, can we just open the window? Also, like making sure up front about inheritance tax is something else that our accountants that deal with the Section 24 stuff can help people with. But obviously this is a situation where somebody's already got potential inheritance tax. So I think it's 700 grand. And under that you don't have to pay inheritance tax, but double check, work it out, but just remember it's on not what they sell it for. It's what they sell it for less what they've spent on it. So they'll only pay, if you're offering them a share of the uplift, they'll be paying tax on a little bit more if they are into the tax thing, but they'll be getting more overall. Stephen said, if you had 150 grand cash and were age 33, single, what would you be doing now? He said, in brackets, this is not me. It's not me either, Stephen. What would I be doing with 150 grand cash and whatever age? I would be doing delayed completion stuff in London. Building blocks of flats. the people on the rich list are all developers, they're not investors. Okay, it's great to have pension money coming in every month, but if you've made between the ages of 33 and retiring millions and millions because you've been doing developments, then there's not too much worry, is there? Nathan says, just like local council lease houses from private landlords, do they also lease rooms? Nathan, what they tend to do is lease the whole house and pay you for all the rooms. But that's a conversation with your local council. Different councils have got different ways of doing things. Kaya says, I helped buy properties, not good value. Okay, right, here's the thing. If there's a 400 grand property that's on the market second hand, normally you need a 15% deposit. 15% of 400 grand, I think in my head, comes to about 60 grand. If, however, the property is a brand new property and it's on the market for 450, you're only going to pay 5% deposit, which I think comes to about 22.5 grand. So when you've got a choice of buying a property with a 22.5 grand deposit or a 60 grand deposit, most people choose the 22.5 grand, but they're then paying 450 for a property that then becomes worth 400, because it then immediately becomes second hand and it goes into the second hand market. So you have to be very aware of that situation. It's one of the reasons why, if I was building blocks of flats, that I used to have, a plan of building blocks of flats and keeping half of them and selling them. But because of the Help to Buy scheme, it doesn't justify doing it, because I can get a premium on selling them new over keeping them and then valuing lower. So that's where they Help to Buy. So they're definitely not good value for investors. They are just a tool to get people onto the property market. Catherine said, right, okay, looking for landlords who have to sell but maybe given other solutions, purchase lease options or rent to rent. Catherine, rent to rent is great. A lot of landlords will do rent to rent. Typical landlords don't sell cheap. So I think you're kind of pressing to need online investors to find out about my... Catherine, I'm running a free day on Saturday. I'm running a free Zoom course, which if you email info@glennarmstrong.com, we can send you details of. It starts at 10, finishes about 3, and it's just an overview on the creative strategies that you can be using to make far more money than traditional stuff. What I'm seeing here is that, I know you're just beginning, and let's just go back to looking for landlords who have to sell. There's just not that many landlords who have to sell. Even now, there's not that many people who have to sell, because of the controls on mortgages over the last few years, and people not being able to do self-cert and that type of stuff. So you're starting to look for needles in haystacks, Catherine. There are far better ways of making money in property. I think you need to do a little bit of learning just to find out what's best and what you could be doing. Dapo says, do you recommend buying property as a limited liability or individual? What are things to keep an eye out for buying as a limited liability? Dapo, it depends on your situation, how much cash you've got, whether you're a high rate taxpayer, how much profit you make in other companies. You really need to do like a normal introductory one-to-one with an accountant who knows what they're doing within the property market. So preferably an accountant who's got properties of their own. Anyone who's on my mentoring program goes through my accountant. who is not necessarily an accountant, he's actually a tax consultant, and he would evaluate your personal situation and tailor something for you. And that's the whole challenge, is it does need to be tailored for you. There isn't a one size fits all. Emerson says, "Hi Glenn, I haven't figured out if you're also a Arsenal fan. Do commercial finance loans, mortgages on buy-to-let properties help getting around section 24? Okay, it's a bit of a spin. Actually, I'm a Tottenham fan, which my cameraman, who I've said I've known since we were 8, so it's over 50 years. It's not his fault. But there we go. And do commercial finance loans on buy-to-let properties help getting around section 24? That is what Mohit said. You will be paying a high rate, so again, it's a walk around. Maybe better ways of doing it, but it all depends on you totally. So there we go. Jib says, right now is the best to invest in property and then in stocks and shares. Jib, my dad does invest in stocks and shares, and about every 7 years he loses everything he's made, and so the circle continues. You pay a lot in fees. I don't invest in stocks and shares. I've always invested in property. Property is great. You get leverage, capital appreciation a lot of the time. I just don't like stocks and shares. You ask Warren Buffett and he's going to give you a different answer to me. But there we go. Dave says, do you mean that you want to build blocks of flats and then sell them to help to buy? I thought you would keep them to rent. No, Dave, if I was building blocks of flats, would I want to keep them worth 400 or sell them worth 450? I'd rather sell them worth 450 and then use the money to do something else. But all the money in property, all the rich list are into development, not necessarily in a big way into buy-to-let. Now, there are people with huge portfolios that have bought over years and years. So I don't think there's anything wrong with having a portfolio. It's just all about, when you start off with a minimum amount of cash, how you can maximise the return. If you can find, using creative finance and three-dimensional thinking, ways to buy properties that you get all your cash back out and recycle, get your cash back out, and all the time you're building into your monthly cash flow. The same as when I bought 52 properties in 48 weeks, and shortly to embark on buying 100 properties in 100 weeks challenge. That I'm starting in the next few weeks. I'm just waiting for the last end of the restrictions from COVID to move their way, and we're going to be up and running. Now we're starting to run out of questions, so if you do have any more questions, please type them away. Happy to answer them. Emerson said after his Arsenal comment, true friends, and yeah, it's got to be a friend you got to like them to like talk to them when they support Arsenal, really. And at the end of the day, did used to be our goalkeeper in our football team when we were younger. And our football team, the best headline we ever got was Park lose their 18-month unbeaten run. So he was a very frustrated goalkeeper who never had to do anything. Was he any good? Don't know. The defence in front of him was too good. So was the defence good? Yeah, we were. But he did used to go up for corners quite regularly, which was quite funny. There we go, you hear him laughing in the background. Minaj, does the title split project always have to be done as a delayed completion? Not at all. Minaj, you can buy a property, get planning and split it into two, or you can buy it subject to planning get planning to split it into two, and then buy it as two rather than as one or as a project. Really and truly, as one of my mentees, all you've got to do, go find deals and then let me help you structure it in the best, most profitable way, and let me make sure that it is one that's going to work. One of my clients recently, or one of my people who came on my course but didn't join my mentorship, went and did title split, didn't take into account the services, which came to over 50 grand and totally, I've got a technical term for it, fucked the project. So you really have got to know what you're doing. There is no point in trying to do property as an amateur without having help from somebody who's done what you're trying to do. So Paul says, it's easy raising second charge finance from ordinary lenders in your experience. Paul, it is a pain in the arse getting the second charge finance. It can take up to 3 months for the first charge to agree to a second charge. Once you get experience in development, you can offer restrictions and loan agreements, and that's what I call swords and shields. The loan agreement is the sword and the restriction is the shield. The loan agreement stops it from being sold without them getting paid, and the loan agreement allows them to take you to court if you don't deliver on the project. Michael says, how do I minimise impact of Section 24 on my buy-to-lets in my personal name without paying huge capital gains if selling to my limited company? Thanks for keeping us educated during this time, it's much appreciated. You're welcome, Michael. I would suggest the best thing you can do is drop an email to info@glennarmstrong.com, get put in touch with Simon. Simon will give a free meeting to help you come up with the best solution for you personally, and then you can make a decision what you're going to do about it. Louis says, how can we legitimately use bounce back loans? If you go onto our YouTube channel, you can watch our 2 webinars I've done with Christos on bounce back loans, both on the YouTube channel, which is the Property Millionaire Academy. So go onto YouTube, search Property Millionaire Academy, and the things that are on there, you can see the things we put on there about bounce back loans. Typically, bounce back loans can be used to lend to other people or to your other companies to do things with, as long as they pay the interest and payments, or used for the company that you borrowed it in, for the benefit of the company that you've borrowed it for. In other words, it's to help your company get through this period and help it grow. Can I buy properties that need a modernisation from a sourcer using bridging finance to appreciated market value, then refinance? Look, there are products out there that will allow you to bridge. They'll lend to you based on value rather than actual purchase price, and then they'll also at the same time pre-agree a future value based on a schedule of works. So as long as you give the surveyor a list of what you're going to do to it, and you do what you say you're going to do, the surveyor will come back at a later date and give it a higher value. Now, there has been one of the biggest challenges we have as surveyors who have a look at us buying properties at cheap, spending money on them, and then trying to get market value out of them. They don't like that. It could affect their PI insurance if something went wrong. So, if you buy it cheap, spend 10 grand on it. So let's say you buy a 100 grand house for 70 grand, you spend 10 grand on it. The surveyors will, if they find out you spent 10 grand, tend to value it at 80, rather than if it was worth 100 when you bought it, it goes up to 120 after you spend it, rather than valuing it 120. So I'm actually in negotiations at the moment with some lenders who lend bridging money to bridging companies. Okay, bridging companies traditionally borrow and it's blended rate. So they borrow maybe 55% off their bank at 3.5%, 4%, and then they borrow at around 8% from private investors, the balance of the 75% loan that they lend. Now, so that's how they normally work. Then they make a margin on that money. Okay. Sorry, I've totally lost where I'm going with this. I've been talking to somebody who've got 100 million fund, and what we're trying to do is to create a bridging company, and somebody who I know is very, very experienced that we've kind of headhunted from somewhere. Is to set up a bridging company specifically for investors, where they will lend 65%, not 75%, but they will lend 65% of market price, not purchase price, which means if you're buying cheap enough, you can get 100%. Same as I bought my mansion with a 22 grand deposit, you would be able to do the same sort of thing. So when you buy well, and they will also agree to refinance it at the new value after the refurbishment, but at the new higher value, true value. Okay, and the valuers will have instructions to value it at its true market value, not at anything to do with purchase price. Now, although it's slightly dearer than normal, you're going to end up much better. So I'm in the process. I have a meeting on Monday with bridging provider, bridging agent, and the person who we're headhunted, and the person who runs this 100 million fund. And I'm trying to put something together that helps investors to actually not have this challenge that we've had over the last few years of surveyors downvaluing things because you buy them cheap, rather than because that's what they're worth. I literally had two houses next door to each other. I bought one house, I think it was 140 grand, it valued at, I bought it for 100, and he valued it at 140 grand because he didn't know what I paid for it. A few months later I bought next door, which was much nicer, but because he found out that I paid 100 grand for it, he valued it at 100 grand. Even though same surveyor, even though he knew that next door wasn't as nice, and he'd valued it at 140. Now, it does not make sense, but surveyors are a law unto themselves when it comes to this sort of stuff. So Krasimir said, Glenn, you mentioned last week, I think that was on Tuesday's webinar, about not to put bandit boards screwed on the wall with a personal number. You mentioned council will call me and fine me. How can I do it legal through call centre or something else? No, it's putting bandit boards up, putting advertising on lampposts and stuff like that that's illegal, and you can get prosecuted for. That's why people who put bandit boards use what they call a basher phone that they get for a SIM card from Tesco's, and people phone that. Now, my preferred way of doing this was to actually get a stencil and a jet wash, and jet wash your adverts into paving stones or walls. Okay? And then it's not actually a bandit board, is it? You just jet washed part of the wall. And that got us around the problem. And we used to put them in bus stops everywhere. Now, yes, I've done bandit boards in Beef Pass. My son used to go out early hours in the morning with a lamppost, going right up high on lampposts with ladders, so people just couldn't take them down. So I've seen it from all sides. But it is illegal to put up bandit boards. If you have to do it, you want to do it, and you put your own number on, you're going to get in trouble. Get a jet washer and a stencil. Get a stencil on like a balsa wood stencil, or plastic preferably, that you cut the letters into. and it's on a long stick, and you just go around jet washing with a mobile portable jet wash, and jet wash messages into walls and things. Ali says, Glenn, I'd be interested in developments, live in West London, what education should I go on with you? Let's start up on Ali on Saturday's free day. That leads into a 3-day Zoom one, or soon to be back to our 4-day live. And then if you like what we do our mentoring for 18 months where we hold your hand through whatever it is you're trying to achieve, making sure, one, you don't fuck up, and two, that you've got the right processes to finding deals. The hardest thing at the moment is finding deals, and I teach you how to find them. Jeff said, if you have personal indemnity insurance, do you have to join the client money protection scheme as you receive rent on behalf of a client? Okay, so this is a renting. You have to join the client money protection scheme as you receive it. You also need to CPO if you're... Right, look, if you're sourcing properties, you need to be a member of the business, the ombudsman scheme, which estate agents are. That answers that question. I think when you are renting properties to people, you can belong to an insurance scheme and pay an insurance fee for every deposit that you hold. I've really not had much to do with the rental side of things. When I had my properties with my ex, we had our own lettings company, and we had one person that used to manage all the properties. We used to manage 450 properties in total, and I'm a little bit rusty on all the regulations of that type of stuff. I'm sure Christos is far more up to date with that stuff. I've just got a big chunk of properties back after a horrible 4-year divorce, which I will have any week now possession of, and I'm going to be selling some and renting some, and in fact what I'll do is I'll try and talk to the person who manages my properties and see if I can get him on here one evening to answer questions on landlord questions, tenancy, rental things. If you can make a note of that, Gary. I'll just mention Stuart, and we'll get Stuart from who manages my properties on here. Okay. Right. Ron says, I've bought a mixed commercial property, 2 2-bed flats on first and second floor. I'm buying with cash, so when I refinance, should I split the titles first, or does it not matter? Normally, Ron, if you turn it into and you title split it, it will value more. And you have a larger choices of mortgages, and they're cheaper. If you keep it all as one unit, you're restricted in the lenders that will lend on a multi-unit block. Whereas if you split it into units, you can get individual buy-to-lets on it. And then you've got the commercial property at the bottom that you can get a commercial loan on separately. The 6-month rule may apply to that, but it'll probably take you 6 months to refurbish it and everything. If you don't want to wait 6 months, there are lenders that will do them sooner than that. You pay slightly more. Michael Russell says, how do you think service accommodation properties will be in this new normal, with 2 but earning minimal present in Edinburgh city centre and St Andrews? Look, I think things will go back to fairly normal gradually over the next few months. Whether or not Edinburgh is like London and there's going to be less demand on properties because people are working from home more, I'm not sure. I don't have any properties that I use for serviced accommodation. A lot of my clients do. I'll probably ask one of them to come on and do a webinar again in the next few weeks. Somebody who's got a lot of serviced accommodation. So we'll have a touch base with them and see where they're going with stuff. But yeah, I think things are going to gradually come back to normal. So watch this space, I suppose. Right, Larry said, how a nominee can get the money to you so he doesn't pay tax on the income. Use the right accountant. Okay, at the end of the day, it's a structure. Anyone on my mentoring will know that structure, and I'll talk them through it. So that's on a no money down basis with nominees. Ali says, thanks, I've sent an email to info for this Saturday. One of my staff will reply to you, Ali. I look forward to speaking to you on Saturday. Cynthia says, me and my business partner want to do your mentorship. And you offer the second personal half price. Yes, we do, Cynthia. And again, if you drop an email to info@, then you'll get one of my staff will call you and go through it all with you. Okay, so Palmetto sent me what looks like one of his usual worthwhile bits of information. Thanks for that, Palmetto. Can I ask you to email it to me, and I'll have a look at that later. I don't really look over all of this, all the comments on here. Michael said thanks again. Palmetto says he thinks whatever it is that was written on that thing is a good move by Boris. So it depends what Boris said. I don't know. I haven't watched the news. In fact, I haven't watched the news for about 3 weeks. This whole COVID thing was pissing me off and all doom and gloom. So yeah, I was enjoying and are enjoying the mini boom that we're seeing. Right, so Dave said, what do you think about the new permitted development rights? Is that something you take advantage of? Yeah, anything permitted development wise we can take advantage of is great. You have to remember that it also means that your competition can do it, but it means that it reduces the risk on buying some properties when it comes to developing them. So yeah, anything with PD rights, you still have to get sign off, but other than that, and again, we can talk about that in more depth. I'm checking with one of my architect clients. We've got 2 clients that are both architects, and trying to get one of them to talk to us next week. So if you want to know more details about the permitted development rights, then join us next week. Okay, look, this brings us to the end of another Thursday evening. Thanks very much for joining us this evening. I'll be back again next Thursday answering your questions. Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday. We'll be announcing the lineup very soon. We're just waiting on some people to confirm whether they can make it. We're trying to get an architect in next week. So if there are any requests, please give us a shout. Potentially I'll get one of our rent-to-rent people to come and chat to people as well about how that's we spoke to them deep in the middle of the lockdown, so things may have changed. So thanks, Palmetto. Kai said, when would you buy a property, now or in 6 months' time? Kai, I'd like to think that if I was building a portfolio again, I'd buy 6 properties, 1 now, 1 every month over that 6 months. And or you're recycling your cash. So you could have potentially recycled your cash at least 1, if not 2 properties within the 6-month period. Depending on your working capital, you might even do more than that. All right, thanks very much, everybody. I hope you have a very good evening. Please make sure you stay safe. Our mortgage broker will be on his own tomorrow evening, so I'm just doing Monday to Thursdays now. I hope this evening has been of use to you. If you are interested in coming on our free creative strategies, 3D thinking, financial engineering course to see how we do things, how my clients are doing things, please feel free. Email info@glenarmstrong.com and we'll send you the links to the Zoom. It starts at 10, finishes about 3, and I look forward to joining you there. Other than that, I'll speak to you again Monday. Take care, be safe, have a good night.